Welcome to hkuncensored. Thank you for joining us,
Thank you
Mr.
so much.
Ameet Jogia.
Yes.
Yeah. Our candidate, member of Parliament, the candidate for the Hendon, North London. Here.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
inviting
so
me.
much for joining us. You are the first UK politicians to be interviewed in here. Yeah.
No.
This is not Sky, this is not BBC, but we also have our live stream here.
Yes.
And maybe this is now very close to the election here.
Yes.
Just 2 weeks away.
Yes.
Well, but actually the poll is not going very well. How do you think, according to the Reuters,
Yes.
the Conservative Party is now facing electoral extinction.
Right. Yeah.
How do you think about it?
No, well, thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to you, Anthony, for inviting me today, and for everyone who's tuned in to listening to this. I don't believe in the polls at all, and I think the most important poll is on the election day itself, Thursday the 4th of July, and we've seen time and time again that polls can be wrong. Here in Hendon, in this constituency, we stand a real chance. We have been out for over a year. We've been going door to door, social media, going to events, and the response on the doorstep is very, very different to the response of the polls. There's a huge disparity there. Everyone I speak to from here in Colindale, in Hendon, they are very supportive of the Conservative cause, and there is lots of support on the doorstep. What worries me is the apathy that these polls are causing, because lots of people say, oh, you know, you're going to lose, and that's not true. We still need to make sure that everyone goes out to vote, and what happens on the 4th of July will be the biggest test of all. Every single vote is to play for. We're not taking any voters for granted. I have been a lifelong Conservative, and I appreciate that there is a lot of frustration on the doorstep, a lot of disappointment. It's been a difficult time, but they still, I'm grateful for all communities who believe in my personal story, that I will be a strong voice for them in Parliament. This election will be about who will be your local MP in Hendon, which covers Colindale and Hendon and Edgware, and I feel that I am the best candidate to represent all interests here.
Speaking of Parliament, but this is the office you are now running for. Oh, but you are already in the office of the number 10. This is the job I'm quite curious. You are the political advisor of our PM.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what aspect are you concentrating?
So I have been involved with it. I've been a member of the party for over 20 years. I joined on my 16th birthday. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, I've known for many years, and I currently I am his political advisor, and I look after faith, race and community. So in my brief, it's all about engaging with the diverse communities in our country. Huge advocate for diversity. We live here in Hendon, one of the most diverse constituencies in the country, and this here is an example of how diversity can be successful. We have a thriving community from Hong Kong. We have a thriving Jewish community, Muslim community. Yeah. I am Hindu by background, and we have a thriving Hindu community as well, and all the communities live together peacefully. They bring out the best in each other. My job as an advisor is to make sure that all the interests of all the various communities are represented and are all tied together by shared British values, which is, you know, this is our home. We all have a stake here, and we want to make sure that we get the very best of being British, and that we integrate, and we can see that just outside here in Colindale. It's such a thriving community, and I want to protect that, and I want to enhance that.
And the Colindale community is going to be increasingly bigger, because the development in the recent years is becoming very fast.
Yes.
Yeah, and because of the developments, we have to rebuild the Colindale station, to expand it, but we have to go through a lot of difficulties.
Absolutely.
Because of the traffic condition. Here because the closure of the station, we have to take a bus. To the other station. But for sometimes other stations around North London also suffer from closure.
Yes.
For some time. I'm aware you have written a letter to the Transport of London today. Okay.
Already posted in Instagram.
What are you fighting for?
Yeah, so here, Colindale is one of the fastest growing areas in the whole of London. It's a fantastic place to live, to go to school, to work, and I'm a huge promoter in that. It's an example of how communities can live together. Speaking over the last year, one of the biggest concerns on the doorstep here in Colindale has obviously been the closure of Colindale Station, which will have a huge impact on everyone. You know, people going to school, people going to work, people getting around. It's going to be huge disruption. So, you know, Colindale is the fastest growing area in London. It's been an good example of regeneration. But what comes with that are certain challenges. We need to make sure that the infrastructure in place is fit for person. That includes the station, to make sure that the station is expanded, that it is fit for purpose to allow that extra footfall. And the government pledged £49 million, and this is an example of the government investing in local communities such as in Colindale. What has been quite disappointing is the way that this closure has been managed. Not just now, but I'm talking about over the year, even COVID at times, of the consultation, of engaging with the community, of so many people rely on the station. What will this mean to families? I don't think that's been done in the best ways. I've been speaking to so many people, and there was even a huge debate about, does the station need to close in the first place? Can the works happen around the station being open? And we've seen that in places across London, across the country, and including in Hong Kong as well. Many local residents come to me and say, well, we do even bigger infrastructure projects without any disruption whatsoever. And I know so that's been a huge issue. What I have been campaigning for first was, I couldn't believe that TfL was going to close the station for 6 months without any replacement bus service whatsoever. They just assumed that for 6 months people will just use alternative measures, which we know, everyone going to work, to school, is not possible. So we fought hard. We fought with TfL to say this is completely unacceptable. Take all the politics aside, just on a practical level, how can a station close for 6 months without any alternative provision?
At least 6 months.
Hopefully it will be less. Well, but we know that other projects in London, TfL projects, have overrun, and I'm not holding my breath.
In the past, Colindale is very convenient. We take a trip to the city centre. Just half an hour. But now we are now taking up to 1 hour. Maybe I can run to the city centre myself.
Well, the bus to Hendon will take half an hour at least itself, which is just down the road.
Or maybe we can go to another station, Queensbury. Just take maybe a half an hour walk. But it is totally inconvenience to the local people.
Absolutely. So I want to be a strong voice for the local community as an elected representative. If this is happening in our area, someone needs to stand up for this and call it out and say, this is wrong, this isn't working. And that's exactly what I've done. I wrote to TfL, as you said, and I said, look, we just about got replacement buses, but they're not frequent enough. I've been speaking, it's been over a week now, and people at residents are saying, I came down here last Monday, last Tuesday, the buses were taking ages to come. This is during the day. In rush hour it's even worse. So we need more frequent buses. The bus services that we do have, the 186, which will go towards Queensbury, 2 or 4 other buses, they need to have extra capacity as well. We have 20,000 people living in this area. One bus was never going to be enough, so we need to have more of that. People have been walking to other stations. It's summer, we're lucky. that the days are longer, it's light. Many people have been coming up to me, especially women, who are saying, look, they feel unsafe, and they're being forced to walk, which I think is completely unacceptable. There should be alternative provisions. It's costing people more money, which during
time
as well. But during this cost of living time, any extra cost is a huge detriment. So we need to have fighting for refunds where possible, and also going back to my first point, we need to make sure that the community, are involved in this. The consultation on plans has just been so limited. We want to work with TfL to find out what's happening, what have you got planned, what will happen. Summer hopefully will naturally be quieter, schools will be closed, but what will happen in September when it gets busier? What are the contingency plans in place? So we want to be part of the solution, not a hindrance, and that's, as your next MP, I want to make sure that we're on the front foot with TfL. Everyone accepts that TfL is in control of this whole operation. TfL is controlled by the Mayor of London, and at times it feels that he is not listening. I've held residents' meetings. Others, councillors, are frustrated as much as I am. They're not being listened to. I'm not being listened to.
Because you live in here too. You live in Edgware too.
Yeah, up here as well. And I mean, I live close to Edgware Station, so we can pass. I'm lucky I can pass through. But my friends and family here, they're really struggling. And literally take the politics out. Why is the Mayor of London not listening to us? We're a forgotten voice here. I mean, they're not even listening to their Labour councillors. So that just shows, how it's not working.
Well, but our neighbor, Hong Kong people, already written a lot of letters to TfL, but it's not going well. They are not quite responsive. How do you make a difference?
No, you have to keep pushing. We have to make a noise here. And I think the thing is, if we don't do anything, or if we carry on, that's exactly what TfL, in my meetings with them, they've said, it will take just 1 or 2 weeks of disruption and then everyone will get used to it. I don't think anyone should get used to it, just because we find other ways, that doesn't mean it's acceptable. TfL need to answer us. I think you will agree, listeners will agree. We're all on the same page. We need answers. We need another. We need more frequency buses, and we need extra capacity on our existing bus network during the closure. These, I think, are valid questions. They're not trick questions, and we have to keep pushing until we get the answers.
Speaking of your job as political advisor for the faith communities, the way you engage different people from different backgrounds exactly for social inclusion. You are the second generation of immigrants from East
Africa.
Yeah. You share the same background. No, not exactly the same, but similar background. With us, with Hong Kong people.
That's right. So as an East African Asian, I think there's a lot of similarities, a lot of synergies with the Hong Kong community here. So my family came here 50 years ago, many Tanzania, Uganda, 72, when there was a huge uprising, led by the dictator Idi Amin, who said all Asians out, 90 days, you have to leave the country. And they left penniless. My parents, our families, they left penniless with nothing. And it was this great country, the UK, we were British citizens, well, my family were, and this country gave us a warm welcome, and my family will never forget that. That's what's inspired me to get involved in politics, in public service, because my parents used to say to me, this country gave us the opportunities to settle, to be safe, to have a good education, to start a business, and to flourish. And we owe it to this country to give back. So in everything they always used to say give back, whether time, whether it's as a councillor, as a school governor, I'm a magistrate as well, and I want to be a representative for our community. The same thing when it happened in Hong Kong a few years ago. My family, it all resonated with us, because we could see this was your family would say, look, this is what happened to us. They're British citizens. but Hong Kong is their home, and
they told a similar story to you.
Is exactly the same story.
Because of dictatorship.
Yeah.
Repression.
Exactly. And again, the UK government, the British government, held their promise and said, these are all British citizens and they have every right to be here. And I'm so proud that it was the Conservative government who allowed 190,000 people to arrive here. And again, I'm even more proud that they came to Northwest London here in Colindale, where my family first came in Hendon all those years ago. And it was, it's shocking, it's sad that it was happening 50 years later. It's still happening, history is repeating itself. But I'm also glad that the response was also equally as positive. And that's why I'm glad that the community, I hope, can make a home here, feel safe here, and can prosper.
Though we come from dictatorship country, but we're facing different difficulties, different challenges, because of any other dictatorship country, not like China. We are facing the translational regression.
It's awful.
Exactly. For this case, the three men, come from the Hong Kong Trade Office. Not only the staff themselves, they also bribe our UK civil servants as a spy. This is very terrible as an example of the infiltration, communist Chinese infiltration. So this is also the same thing we are very worried about here. This is awful. So if you compare it to the East African migration, that was just being kicked out and Britain giving us a home. But as you said, it's very, very different because from the Ugandan Asians, that was it, finished. End of story. Some bit of that families never went back, and that was it. Here, it's very different, and the regression that China is pushing for is completely unacceptable. And I've been learning it along the way as well. When I speak to my friends from the Hong Kong community here, this transnational regression is completely unacceptable. It's scary, and you hear it on the news. But I've seen evidence here in Colindale. People they're saying, look, the people feel unsafe. There is pressure, and I'm proud that the Conservative government has taken a firm stance to rule out any national repression of any sort, because it's completely unacceptable. This is our home, and no one should be made to feel unsafe here. No one should be made to feel like they are being watched, that they are being spied on. And it's very, very worrying that there is this very sort of sophisticated that's unfortunately out there. I've been lots of events, I've been door knocking, and people are afraid to talk to me because they feel we don't want to give our identity, we don't want to give any information, we don't want to in some cases even vote, because
unlike us, not just Hong Kong community, but also the Chinese community, they also share the fear from the repression of Beijing.
Because after 2 years ago, some young people from China study here. After the COVID, a lot of people, young people in mainland China, in Beijing, in any other main city, they are aroused. They talk on the street, they demonstrate. A lot of people sacrifice. But aroused, they make a lot of people here, the Chinese people here, begin to talk on the street, to speak out. In very important days. But they also face the same difficulties we are facing here. Transnational regression. They also threaten the sovereignty here. Because of the national security law here. For the example of the civil servants who share also have the Hong Kong background.
But that is against the law. That, I mean, the civil service, the impartiality. They can't. The civil service is the best in the world. Can't even be political. You know, they have to be completely neutral, and these cases are very that they're in the heart of our system is very, very worrying.
Yeah, of course.
We found even one of the Hong Kong spy. He is the police. Yeah, and that's why we found who can be trusted.
Any area we can see the room for improvement.
So here, I think it's so important that we have a strong voice in Parliament. We need an MP who will challenge this to the very, very top. The Conservative government, I think, has had a fantastic record of standing up for the community from Hong Kong, standing up for transnational regression, and to make sure that these laws are not, this regression of any sort is not tolerated. And I think now more than ever, especially in Colindale, where we have one of the largest Hong Kong communities in the UK, I think only a Conservative voice, only a Conservative MP will be able to stand up for the community in Parliament, given our history, our shared values, welcoming the community a few years ago to the UK, and not just ending it here, but going all the way to ensure that our community feels safe here and thrives here. We need a voice that will champion our concerns in Parliament, that will call out the threats and the oppression by China, to call out these, infiltration in our civil service, which is completely unacceptable. And I believe I can be that strong voice for the community here.
For the strong voices, and we got the question from chat room. Can you share your view on Farage plan to stop even undo the BNO schemes?
No,
unacceptable.
Unacceptable. Okay. I'm not even going to talk about that. I mean, it's the BNO scheme, Ugandan Asians, our history, our country is the greatest country in the world. We have all had a proud history of accepting people in need, refugees, asylum seekers, whoever needs help. We have taken in.
But we are stopping the boats.
No, but that's illegal. That's illegal immigration.
Okay.
That's illegal immigration. This country, whenever anyone is in need, this country is the first to open its doors. We have taken in the largest number of refugees from Syria, from Afghanistan, from across the world, from Ugandan Asians, from Hong Kong. Whenever anyone needs help, whether they're British citizens, like we were, or anybody else, this country will always open its door. To stop the boats is very different. That is illegal immigration, and that's not because we like these people and don't like these people. It's because they are coming here illegally. If people needed help, there are routes to come here legally. As an asylum seeker, they apply for asylum, it's processed, it's looked at. But the people on the boats, unfortunately, are abusing this system. And my worry is, they are abusing the system, and heaven forbid if there are more people, wherever across the world who need to come here because they're facing threats or persecution, they won't be able to come because
but those small boats may say, I have no time because the repression is so rapid, I need to come as soon as possible, something like this.
But they're coming from France, which is a safe country. So you wait in France, apply the legal way, and then come. No one needs to risk their life to cross the channel.
Okay.
Everyone is coming from a safe country. That's the issue, and I don't know why that's not been talked about. They're not, if they were coming from a country where they're facing oppression, fair enough. But we've seen time and time when there was a conflict in Afghanistan, there were air routes. Even Ukraine, people were in danger. There were routes. But the people on the boats, unfortunately, they're coming from France, which is a very safe country.
Okay. Speaking of the community, the social inclusion from different background, we have we feel Hong Kong people feel quite uneasy, don't quite get along with the mainland Chinese. Do you know that?
Yeah, I'm aware of the tensions.
Yeah, because you have visited the North Chinese Association a few days before.
Yes.
Last week. People ask us, wow, it has the background has a ties with the Chinese embassy. How do you respond to that?
So I went I was invited to the event. I went to the event. I wasn't the only person there. Labour were there, the Labour candidate, the Labour mayor, councillors. It was a community event that's been ongoing for many, many years. It wasn't a one-off event. But I was struck that at the event there were many other that I could see, exactly what you were saying. The possible risk, the infiltration, and I saw that firsthand, and so that's opened my eyes as well of the tensions that you mentioned, the risks, and I will certainly be taking that up.
And seems this is quite different with the our community, Hong Kong people, with the mainland Chinese people. It is quite different with the people from, for example, from India and Pakistan. For the relationship between India and Pakistan, we found they are quite hostile with each other if you are in South Asia. But when they come to UK, maybe thanks for your help. They are gathered together to fight for their rights here to live pretty. How to say peacefully, but for the Hong Kong people with the mainland Chinese people, they both of us escape from the authoritarian repression, but we have bring our hostile to here, and even though we live here together, we feel uneasy with each other.
That makes me very sad. I'm a supporter of all communities, and I think the success of our communities is that all communities thrive. You mentioned India, Pakistan. Here, as a British-born Indian, I've never experienced that here, thankfully. Cricket, when there's a cricket match, it's so fun. You've got the different teams. People come together. No one has ever said, don't come here.
Maybe we need football. We need to criticize Southgate. You can't be so conservative.
But I in this as your next MP, I want to make sure that all communities continue to live side by side, because I think that is the best way to do. Our diversity makes us stronger, but I also recognise the risks with the Hong Kong community in China. Like you said, it's very, very unique. That's not with other migrant groups, community groups don't have that. They leave the country and then that's it. But here it's a very, very niche issue, and I'm aware of that. So there's no one size fits all approach, and I recognise that. I recognise those concerns, and people contacted me over the week saying, were you aware of it? And I said, look, I wasn't, and I saw it, and this has increased my awareness of exactly what you were saying. But I think I only got that by going. I don't want to be closed off either.
Okay.
And I encourage all of your listeners, if there are concerns, if there are worries, please talk to me, call me, let me know of, Ameet, do you know that this is happening? Do you know the intelligence? That is very, very helpful information. And I think that's the way that we can break down these barriers.
Okay, so let's talk about the tax cut. Speaking of the political manifesto, both of you, Tories and Labours, you sell to us tax cut. The Labours promise not to have a tax hike in the coming years. But you also promise we will even have more tax cuts in the upcoming 4 years. So what makes you difference?
Well, the difference is our tax cuts are funded, Labour's are not. The principle, the fundamental principle about the Conservative Manifesto is the value of we live within our means. So yes, all the tax cuts that we have introduced in our manifesto have all been funded. We are only announcing those tax cuts because we can afford to do so.
Where the money come from?
Well, it's from the
us. We are big customer
from the reforms that we're making. But you've seen Labour's manifesto, and they had this 28 billion hole, which we called them out on, which Labour acknowledged that there's a
financial black hole.
Black hole. But they've acknowledged that, but they've still continued to use the same manifesto. So where how can you have the same pledges without their cost. And there are plans. The current manifesto is going to cost, and this is evidence, an extra £2,000 per household, which is very expensive. I know that the Conservative
to fund for the social welfare,
welfare,
NHS.
And all the other plans that they have in place as well. I know that everyone wants a further tax cut, but I think it's responsible to offer a tax cut only when you can afford to do so, and not before. I think it's irresponsible. You need a strong economy in place. If you have a strong economy, and you can see that through Rishi Sunak, he's turned the economy around in 18 months. Interest rates are set to fall. Inflation
interest rate stable.
He's instilled confidence in the markets, regained trust.
Again, recite it. Grow the economy, half the inflation.
But now is
stop the bones.
Maybe it's all about U.S. Federal Reserve,
but not
him. Come on, man.
Inflation is less than half, so the economy is on track. Now is not the time to blow it. We need to keep the strong economy so that you can invest in our public services.
It's quite difficult to grow the economy. Do you believe it?
No, but you have to have the strong mechanisms in place, and you need to regain that trust which the Conservatives have. I mean, you look at the newspapers, and
is it possible to go back to take example to a more Hong Kong way, laissez-faire, the economic model, laissez-faire, bigger market, less
small government,
less government intervention.
Well, I mean, Hong Kong it's a model community. It's naturally conservative, right? A small c conservative, exactly what we as a society endeavour to have a small state and to give you individuals more power, how you earn your money, how you keep your money, and how you spend your money. And it's giving empower to the people
to stimulate our incentive to grow,
to work, and to work as well.
To reinvest our economy,
to make sure that hard work pays. The harder you work, the more reward you get, and the more people work, the economy grows, and we've seen that.
So how about the NHS? The queue for the NHS service is terrible. And
7 million case.
Yeah. Look, the NHS. I think we have the greatest medical institution in the world. Wherever in this country, whoever needs help is provided that help at free of charge, which no other country can give to the same level. But look, we have some real concerns. Waiting lists are too long, and it is unacceptable. People have to wait so long, especially for cancer care. My parents both died of cancer, but I have to say they went through the system and they had the best service ever. So it's not always that negative experience, but we need a strong economy to invest in the NHS. And I think what has been coming out recently, it's not about money, because every administration, every party has been pumping money. So it's not that, but it's other things we need to look at to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place for large developments. So here in Colindale, a huge development, but people struggle to get a GP appointment because the developers didn't put in, as they promised, in Colindale Gardens and Nuyabai, the doctor's surgery that they promised. We have empty vacant units which were meant to be a medical hub. So we have an extra how many thousand people here who have nowhere to go, and they're going to doctor's surgeries which are already full. And that's always been my point as a strong voice in the community. I'm not against development, I'm not against house building, I'm not a NIMBY, but if we're building, we need to make sure we have the GP surgeries, we have the school places. School places is a big issue here. So many parents are saying, look, we don't have a school for our children. Where do we go?
But how to improve the most basic medical services? It may be the important part for the community, because I saw some comments or maybe some critics from NGOs. They tell me about that more doctors in UK right now, but fewer GPs are involved in the community, and that's the problem.
Because we are the population here is growing very drastically.
I mean, people. We have a high population, but we also have an aging population. People are living longer. They have more chronic diseases. Diabetes. So many other conditions, which even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they weren't that prevalent. So things are changing, and we need to move with the time. One of the initiatives, so the Prime Minister did this in tackling, this is Pharmacy First, which is working very well in our area, which means that it helps free up those appointments to say, actually, if you have a cold or a condition where you need medicine, you can, instead of going to your GP, you can now go to your local pharmacist and you can have antibiotics prescribed.
We hear a lot of the affordable housing, but less about the affordable, maybe private clinics here. Because
it's really expensive.
Compared with
£100.
Compare with Hong Kong,
each visit.
We are quite mature, sophisticated to develop the private clinic.
Yeah.
Well, but in UK, it's very extreme.
Yeah.
It works to save your life.
Yeah.
But do very little to cure your medical needs. We have increasing population here, and also come with the large demand of the medical demand here. Well,
the chat room there.
Dental service.
Dental service.
Yeah, dental service, and also, do you think is it possible to develop the private clinic here, affordable clinic here?
Affordable private clinic.
Yeah. So the principle of private is it's free market. So it comes from
the free market. I can see a lot of the
needs to be
Chinese medicine here.
Yes, especially around here, but it needs to be affordable. But it's not just, you mentioned medical conditions, but in that incorporated, we also now see a huge demand in needs for mental health services as well. Especially post-COVID, there's lots of conditions around mental health which shouldn't be dismissed at all. So, as your MP, I want to make sure that we have the best medical provision in our local area. I was born in Edgware Hospital down the road, and my GP surgery is here as well. I've had fortunate to have the best service ever, but I appreciate that many people here are struggling, especially getting a GP appointment and a dentist appointment as well. People say to me, Ameet, we can't get a dentist appointment with the NHS. We have to go private. So I will be campaigning to make sure that we have the best accessibility to services here in Colander. We have the fastest growing area in London, but we don't have the services to match up with that. And we need a strong voice to make sure that aligns up.
Agree with that. Maybe talk about the job in number 10. How do you get along with Rishi? Your personal relationship. How do you think of him?
Yeah, look, he's a fantastic guy to work for. It's a huge honour. Rishi works incredibly hard, and for everyone out there, he has blood, sweat and tears. He gives in every hour of every single day to this job, and he doesn't need to do this job. You see the criticism he faces. You see, it's so unkind. The backlash that you get, but he still so soldiers on, and it's so inspiring. He would come down in his office at 6 a.m, straight. Before any of us. He's on his papers. He goes through his papers. He signs all his letters. He has a huge eye for detail. We're with him, and he would still pick stuff up that sometimes others have missed. And he doesn't even go up till about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Don't forget, he's not just in the office. He's in the office in the morning, and he's out and about across the country, then in Parliament, then meeting, then receptions. He loves meeting people. And number 10, he's always been a promoter for having receptions. So whether it's the Lunar New Year, I know many people from the community came here, whether it's Diwali or Eid, he always wants to make sure that we promote lots of charity receptions he has as well. So he wants to bring out the best in society.
And he's too hardworking to miss the ceremony in Normandy.
Look, I think that I mean he was the first person to acknowledge that he made
he apologized.
He apologized.
Yeah.
He an error in judgment. But look, I don't think that should take away from the fact of just how much he's done for the community, especially for veterans. He came to Colindale. If you remember, to acknowledge
Royal Air Force Museum
just down the road, to acknowledge the tremendous contribution of our veterans.
Thank you for inviting me here.
No, thank you for coming. I mean, you saw that firsthand, his passion. And he has done more for veterans than any other British Prime Minister. And here we have a large number of Gurkhas as well, who live very close to us in Edgware and Burntoke. And so they were so pleased to see the Prime Minister.
They service in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong, where exactly? For so many years. So you've seen firsthand how much he cares for the community, and I was so honoured that he came to Colindale and I was able to say, look, Rishi, this is where I'm from, look at this, you know, the thriving population, thriving communities. I spoke to him about the station and he thought that was crazy, you know, that a station was closing without any alternative provision. And he said, look, I mean, you need to do something about it. You need to stand up for your residents, and that's exactly what I'm hoping to do. This election is going to be about who you want to be as your local MP. You know, we shouldn't be thinking about what's happening nationally, but who is the best person for you in Hendon to get things done. If you have a problem, who will fix that problem for you? If you have an issue, who will raise that issue for you at the highest level in Parliament? I have that proven track record of delivering. I've been a councillor for over 10 years, so locally I can get things done. Developments which haven't been popular, I've managed to make sure that they change or that they come back in the right way. I know how to make it so when the replacement bus services, you know, I was the only one who was outside that station meeting residents, talking to residents. You know, you've seen my videos online, and to make sure to speak to TfL to say, look, this is completely unacceptable, we need to get things done, and I'm pleased that they did. But it's not over yet, and we've seen that it's not working, and I'm determined to make sure that this closure works. You know, we can do everything we can to minimize the disruption here.
Wow, but apparently, I agree, he's very hardworking, but his hardworking doesn't deserve the popularity he recognized. The
recognition seems record low.
According to the YouGov poll, his popularity rank, at the 31st. A way trail behind, the second, Keir Starmer. How do you think about that?
Look, I these polls, as I said, I mean,
they are wrong in the very beginning. He said,
but these polls, you know, they're I think they're heavily biased, and also don't forget he's Prime Minister, and Prime Ministers always get the brunt. I mean, so all Prime Ministers, you know, in their time of office, face the most level of objectivity because they're at the top. So they are getting the objectivity from all sides. So it's natural for Prime Ministers. But I know on the ground here, you know, if you go out to Colindale Gardens, the response is very different. So for me, it's not about YouGov, it's about Colindale Gardens, Colindale. You know, do you like Rishi? And hand on heart, people say they do. They know he's a sincere man. They know he's a genuine man who cares about this country. You know, especially with his background as well, his parents, his grandparents, and they can relate to him. And especially his support for the Hong Kong community as well, and our party. Priti Patel is another friend who was the Home Secretary, who brought in the BNO Act, and I remember working with her, and she said, you know, she put her foot down and she said, as a Ugandan Asian, and she said, no, we need to do this, and I'm so proud that she did do that.
So why don't Rishi invite her to the cabinet?
I mean, it's not just Priti. The cabinet is limited to a number of people. Rishi and Priti work very well together. Priti has been on the campaign trail, and I know she'll be joining me. Okay. She'll be joining me here as well. She's very keen. She knows so many. She's so popular in the community that I know. She sends her best wishes, and she's been out and about supporting Rishi, supporting the Conservatives across the country.
Okay, so listen to our voice of our netizen. Private clinic is markedly priced as
No. First, not just appointment for dental services. The local dentists simply stop accepting new registrations. That's a huge problem in here.
So that's the issue that I've heard as well. People have been saying to me that local dentists are not accepting new NHS registration.
Not just this constituency. Even in my constituency, it's the same.
in
Bedford.
This is unacceptable, and we need to make sure that the system can provide for that. And I know that I've raised this at the level at the top, and I know that as your MP, I'll make sure that everyone has access to an NHS dentist in our local area.
Okay, from Mars Alien, if only Sunak would fulfill his pledge made in PM election campaign and stand up against to People's Republic of China. UK may be better and tourists may still can rely on many Hong Kongers' votes.
Look, that's a very key point. I'd like to remind it was the Conservatives who introduced the BNO scheme, and I think we should remember that they've recognised that British citizens at their time of need, this is the right thing to do, and I'm so proud to be part of that movement that not only allowed Hong Kongers but Ugandan Asians and so many other groups to come in. I do take your point, but the government has stood up. The article to the law restrictions in Hong Kong, the government has stood up to that and said they will not recognise that. Transnational regression, they've also recognised that in Parliament, and China as well. There's the strictest of sanctions in place to make sure that infiltration or that intimidation as well, the security through cyber threats as well, is called out and acted upon.
Seems not just cyber threat. We have lost one question. Do you agree to accept crops like Shein as IPO can boost the UK economy? Why did he mention Shein, this kind of this kind of corporation? Because it's from China, and right now, as you maybe you have heard, the European Union and there's a trade argument between European Union
the raising the tariffs against China.
Against Chinese dumping, because for example, Shein, maybe even BYD, they do not set up the factory, they do not protect the jobs in
doesn't
UK.
Do good in UK because they flood a lot of the Chinese consumer products here, clothes, mainly the clothes. If
BYD is all about the electric vehicles.
Electric car.
Well, look, the government I know has raised these concerns at the highest level, especially with Article 23 that has come up as well. And I want to continue to be that strong voice in Parliament to make sure that our concerns here are not drowned out. And and Labour's stance on this, I don't think they have serious concerns about their their intentions with China as well. And I'd like to think that you would recognise that at least the Conservatives have been very, very clear from day one about relations with China, of just the risks involved as well, and having the guts and having the courage to stand up to China.
Okay. One more question. Rishi promised 2 years ago to close down all the Chinese institutes in our university. Wow, but now, obviously, it doesn't come true. What is the difficulties?
No, I think it's not just with this. With a recent example, the encampments, the anti-Semitism that people face in universities as well. So there are lots of issues of this sort of threats and this,
Is it a national? Is it a threat against our national security? Because they can use it as
universities that they're a great place, for young people and anyone, but they can be breeding grounds for unfortunately for extremism, for threats like this, cyber threats as well, and they need to be actioned in the right way. I know that the government has called upon all the chancellors of the major universities to make sure that they have the powers to identify what is happening, because ultimately the university head, the deans, should know what is happening in their university. They need to be able to recognize what's happening, and they need to have the powers as well through government to call it out and to stop it. And I think that I agree more needs to be done to make sure that that's followed through, not just from government, but all the way down to the ground in the universities.
So you mean is the autonomy of the university? The government can do very little about that.
No, I mean the government puts in the legislation in place for universities to act. So they've putting in the legislation in place to say that if this happens, you can call it out. But again, universities have the power, but they need to act
to pass a law about that, about the Chinese infiltration. But after we have a mechanism, we can do more about that.
Well, I mean, there's already legislation in place to call out any sort of extremism, any threats to national security. That is already in place, not just in university, but anywhere. But I take your point that perhaps more specifically aligned to China, more can be done to recognize, to identify those particular threats. Because at the moment, it's very, very broad, any threat to national security, but not necessarily perhaps universities, they don't have the awareness of what that means from China per se.
What if it's already a threat of our national security, because they can use it as a vehicle for Chinese communist infiltration, to spy against the student in the university, or steal the intellectual property in the university. It happens quite frequently.
And even in
the United States,
the freedom of speech in the university, maybe you hear lots of stories during the pandemic era. If you talk something, if you criticize the Chinese government, those institution will give you some complaint letter and let the professor leave the school. That's the problem.
That's the issue. I mean, look, the government have shown their unequivocal support against the behaviour directed by China, whether it's cyber attacks, espionage, and it's completely unacceptable. And they've applied for sanctions in response to China's state-affiliated organisations as well. And I was speaking to, I'm just going through some notes that I made with some meetings I had with senior ministers as well, who I know have been working on this very, very closely, and they've said, look, they've applied for sanctions in response to Chinese state-affiliated organisation and individuals carrying out these malicious cyber attacks and targeting our democratic institutions and even parliamentarians in the UK as well. This is a threat on our democracy, and we will always defend ourselves to make sure that our freedoms are protected, and we've also imposed sanctions against Chinese government officials for gross human rights records as well in Xinjiang, and also restricted the sale of crowd control equipment in Hong Kong. So, again, coming back to this election, will be about who you want to be your MP in Parliament, and I will continue to be a strong voice for the Hong Kong community here to make sure that their concerns about China are held, are raised to the highest level, because we need to get someone to do something about it and raise it at the right levels.
Okay.
And not be afraid to speak out, or not be afraid to call anything out.
One last question from Marseille. Too many. Okay, what UK government can do to make PRC accountable for their promises made in Sino-British Joint Declaration? Only statement.
What the UK government can do to make accountable for
the...
Yeah. Look, well, Mars, hello. Nice to see you. I know you've got lots of questions, and maybe we can meet up at some stage after this. It would be great to have a discussion one-to-one as well. I think the government has made in their pledges in the manifesto of our manifesto of making sure not just PRC but others are accountable for any threats to our national security through our democracy. But after this election, as your strong voice, as your MP, I will make sure that we can work to ensure that it's more specific in relation to China and in relation to more joint declarations as well, and work with the Foreign Office to make sure that we can put the mechanisms in place.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, so my last question is, can we contact you through the Instagram or the DM in Twitter, because you see so many questions that we need to.
The best way to contact me is by email, because Instagram and Twitter I respond, but I get lots and lots of messages. But emails I have on my phone, and I can just check it as soon as I get home as well. So you can put my email down as well, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I want to be an MP that is visible, that is approachable. And just on a final note, we are winning here in Hendon, and I've been so overwhelmed by the love and the support by our local community that we have a local person standing, especially from the Hong Kong community. Thank you so much for making me feel so welcome.
So much. Thank you.
When I go to the doorstep, everyone is so friendly. I've been invited for teas and a lot of the delicious food as well, and I'm so humbled that people think of me and have instilled their trust in me, and I just want to make sure that I deliver on that I don't let anyone down, and that I can be the best MP and best voice for you here in Colindale and across the constituency as well.
Thank you very much, Ameet.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with that.
Thank you so much, Lung. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
See you in Parliament.
Absolutely. See you later. And please, if I may, just final, the deadline to register to vote is tonight, midnight. So please, if you haven't done so already, go on to gov.uk. It takes a minute. Postal votes, if you're away, you can apply by tomorrow, or vote by proxy as well. But whatever you do, please do make sure that you use your voice here in this country and vote on the 4th of July.
Okay. So, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.